So I'm here to argue that planning as we know it is dead. Planning harder in a less known environment just isn't the answer. It's too fraught with errors, it's too limited in perspective.
Infrastructure exists to run applications, and cloud is all about applications.
We're working hard because we're trying to make the app better and more accurate so that it can save more lives.
One of the things that I really feel is Ansible is going to be that glue that's going to be able to make life much easier for people like me to be able to rapidly deploy, maintain, and manage things that are out in Amazon or anywhere, any other cloud.
Really excited about being here, predominantly because we get amazing feedback directly from the user that says, you know what, this was helpful, but you know what would be really great is if you guys could do this.
Yeah, I have a lot of passion about DevOps, and one of the things I'm really looking forward to and taking back to my organization is the ability to share Ansible and Puppet code baselines across our organization and make every individual's effort as broad an impact as possible.
A company is not teams or something. A team is nothing but an individuals, the group of individuals that they work. So each one's impact will impact the team. Each team's impact will impact the company. So this might be the best way to put that.
So as a developer, OpenShift.io, we've been exploring many challenges over the last 6 months in moving to microservices, and it looks like that is solving a lot of the needs we're uncovering.
OpenShift.io seems to be very interesting, developers can have one single pane of glass.
And also like to know about the roadmap for Ceph storage, because Ceph is one of the product in the market which has ability to give object, block, and file system gateway.
We were looking to see how some of the new technology will fit with the current client we're working with and get a chance to actually touch it and use it and see how it would better our environment. So upgrading to Satellite 6, looking at the new RHEL 7 features.
And open source is the only development model to solve the complex problems of the hybrid world.
And I think that that's a really huge benefit from open source because they truly understand all, how everything works within that system. They can kind of port it really naturally and transfer that knowledge.
Everybody's sitting it and seeing something different. So again, you bring diversity to the table, you get a different product, or a better product.
Organizations that figure out how to create a context that allow individuals to act in a collective way that can learn and continue to march forward are the organizations that will be successful.
All of these pieces exist in various upstream communities that we are participating in and helping to drive. This is why Red Hat is defining the next generation of computing. Thank you very, very much, and have a great summit.
Please welcome Red Hat President of Products and Technology, Paul Cormier.
Afternoon. Wow, what an amazing week. What an amazing week. So just for the record, that was a sinker last night, and I'm told officially by the Red Sox that a sinker is supposed to have a little dirt on it. So it was all okay. But I have to tell you, you probably can't tell because I know I don't have an accent, but I grew up around here, spent my entire life here. So standing on the mound at Fenway last night was just unbelievable. Standing there to throw out the first pitch, it's almost as exciting as having stood on the stage here at the Red Hat Summit for 13 years and just watched this whole movement evolve. So just on a personal note, it was just awesome. I mean, if there's ever been any question that, that open source and Linux aren't driving the next generation of innovation, then you haven't been to the Red Hat Summit, especially this year. I think we've had a year here that just showed it just going, open source just going so much beyond Linux. So we're all really, really excited, and I hope you all had a great time and learned a lot here. You know, all week, you know, you heard from our customers who are transforming how they work. I mean, that was our goal here, to really show you the power of open source in action in solving real life problems. Keybank is one of those stories. You know, they went from a traditional slow-moving stack to deploying every day through a continuous delivery pipeline in a container-centric environment overnight. OpenShift Container Platform was and is a big part of that. And that's not why John Rezatarski is here to walk you through Keybank's DevOps journey firsthand. He's going to take you through it and give you all the nitty-gritty details. So John, come on out.
Please welcome Keybank Director of Continuous Delivery and Feedback, John Rezatarski.
Hey, thank you, sir. Thank you. Yep, I'm good. I made sure if the handshake was going to go low, I was going to be there for it, because if drop down, not so funny. No, we're excited to be here to tell you our journey, a little bit about Keybank. We are one of the top 15 largest banks in the United States that you've probably never heard of, but we're headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. So go Cavs. Yes, thank you. I was waiting for somebody to clap, please. So no, we're real excited. We grew up through acquisition. We're about 190 years old. So if you think about how many banks we've acquired in the time of 190 years to become one of the top 15 largest banks, that's a lot of servers and machines and applications all coming together. And that's going to be a big part of the story I'm about to tell. And every good story starts with admitting that you have a problem. One of our first issues that we had a couple years ago, and it was a very significant issue. It took us down pretty much the entire day, and when we tried to fix it, we actually made it worse. I don't know if anybody's actually gone through something similar, but it was really because we didn't understand our complexity. I had mentioned that we acquired a lot of banks. Most recently, we acquired First Niagara out of Buffalo, and we executed that acquisition last year. As part of that, we got a new Unisys mainframe. I'm pretty sure saying new Unisys mainframe is an oxymoron. I don't think that makes much sense. We looked at exactly what our online banking flow actually was. And we routed out every individual step. And when we did that, we identified so many different issues. We identified the fact that when one user logged in, we actually had over 200 network hops. We were bouncing back and forth between our two different data centers anywhere from 10 to 30 times. And it was just so complex that we were like, anytime we tried to fail something over, it just wasn't working. So we really had to take a step back and say, all right, let's go through, let's do an assessment, let's realize where our issues are, and let's try to correct those. Now, how we got there was because of this acquisition, because of these problems. And you know what? I'm sorry, can you go back one slide? I messed up. I hit it too fast. We became go back one, there we go. So we became a very siloed IT organization because we had so many different systems to support. And I love this picture because this really actually shows the finger pointing that happens in organizations our size. So we had to fix all the network issues. We had to fix all of the system issues and where we were running systems of record between two different data centers. That was the easy stuff. The hard stuff was saying, how do we prevent this from happening again? I mentioned the metrics as well. A big answer for that was DevOps. How can we change our culture to have more of a culture of engineering? Now, anybody starting a DevOps journey, don't rework the wheel. There is a ton of material out there for you. Gene Kim, Jez Humble, John Willis, they all give you the answers that you need. And the way I like to explain DevOps is actually talking through Farley's laws. So law number one, people believe before they doubt. To err is to human. We all make mistakes, and we're going to continue to make those mistakes. Law number two, things are more complicated than you think. We don't understand the complexity. We actually hit that when we hit our big issue. He has a third law as well, and it's all stuff is interesting, and I think it's basically these first two laws are so depressing that he needs a third law there to make everybody feel better. But what is he tells us, though, that to combat this, you have to combat these two laws with experimentation. It's all about, we know we're going to make mistakes, and we know that we don't understand the complexity. So you know we're going to fail. So we have to fail fast. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. And this directly correlates to our methodology. We were a typical waterfall organization like so many other large enterprises. We assess an opportunity, we plan for it, we develop it, we made sure we had all the requirements, then we test it and we deploy it. And it went so perfectly, and we were on time and on budget, and none of that is true. Right? So if we look at Farley's laws and we apply that, yes, we still have to assess, we still have to develop, but let's automate everything we can in between. Automate infrastructure components, automate testing, automate release, automate validation. And that's where you get these fast cycles, and then you accept or reject that change. Because of Farley's laws, we know that we're going to fail because we're human and we don't understand the complexity. One of our tech leads actually drew this on the whiteboard while we were going through one of our implementations, and it makes so much sense, because if you're a big snake taking 2 big bites, it's kind of hard to digest all that, but if you take little bites, it's much easier. So we went out, and a team of folks and me, we built a pitch for our CIO. And once again, following the Godfathers, the Gene Willis, or the Gene Kim, the John Willis, they'll tell you right away, metrics-driven approach. Go tell your CIO what metrics you're going to affect. For us, it was mean time to resolution and release frequency. Those were both going to be 2 big items we were going to hit. And we sold her on it. We had to narrow down scope. So here's the thing. Like, people that want to say, hey, we're going to build a DevOps practice, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You know, you're not going to change the world overnight. You got to pick your battles. For us, it was 3 main areas. It was containers, it was automated testing, and by the way, if anybody tells you a DevOps story and it doesn't include automated testing, they're not telling you a DevOps story. And the last piece is continuous delivery. So you need that to kind of bring all the glue together. So now that we had our scope, we had our team, we needed to put together the team, which was really, you know, Docker's 4 years old. So this stuff's young. You need some solid people here. So you need to go find those change agents that can actually help you change the world. We were angel funded. So our CTO and our chief architect kind of opened up their wallets and said, we're going to build a little mini startup inside our bank. And then the project selection, don't go after the easy falling off the tree. Go after something that's going to be impactful. At our time, we were actually redesigning our online banking platform. We were really excited about it. So the way that we put the team together, and actually I'm referencing here something that Matthew Skelton wrote a blog about, different ways to introduce DevOps into an organization. And this concept is called DevOps as a service. So we basically were a small team. We sat between development and operations and really helped to manage the release of the online banking application as it was being built. Now, I'll tell you, you don't want to be a new silo. You don't want to be a new distributed. So we need to smoothly collaborate. We should be putting ourselves out of a job if we're doing our job right. So our first scope item was containers. And everybody makes up words at these conferences and stuff, so mine's Containergeddon. Because I think it's coming, and it's going to destroy everyone, and it's fantastic. So when we're building an application, we start with a product. We require infrastructure. Oh. And as part of that first piece of infrastructure, I'm sorry. There we go. OK, so as part of that, we take that infrastructure, we virtually slice it in half, and we virtualize it so that we can get more bang for our buck. Then we install operating system components on it. Then we install frameworks. Then we install more frameworks. Then we install applications. All right, there we go. So then we install the platform itself, and then we finally install the applications that are up on top of it, right? Now we're done. No. Now we have to go through, and we have to test and validate, or we have to make sure we have the right security model and the right operational configuration so that we have all the right logging in place, and we have all the right alerting in place. Now we're done, right? No, now we have to test and we have to validate each individual component from a dependency perspective. Now we're done. No, we got to start all over again when we patch, upgrade, and hotfix all of the different environments. Now, each of these boxes is typically at a different team. So imagine being the project manager trying to cross-communicate across all of these different boxes and lines. That's why it took us 2 months to get servers out the door, right? And get an application actually installed. And by the way, I had to do that 4 times because I have a dev environment and an IT environment and so on and so on. Containers. Build once, build it in code, move it around on immutable infrastructure. Removes responsibility from our legacy infrastructure teams. I like to say we cheated, basically, at our kicking off DevOps. This is shifting left and being able to produce fast infrastructure that's more consistent and less error-prone because there's no human involvement. Fantastic piece of technology. So containers are great by themselves, but they don't give me high availability. They don't give me zero-down deployments. They don't give me readiness checks and all the goodness that I need because I have to keep my application available at the highest service levels. So that's where Kubernetes comes in. And we evaluated several of the different platforms that were out there. Kubernetes was the winner, by far. And I'm looking at Raffaele Spazzoli. He helped us make the decision. All right, Raf. So now we had Kubernetes, we had Docker. Now the rest of it was really starting to fall in line. We focused very heavily on test automation, moving over to Cucumber, and our business analysts started writing Gherkin. I mean, it was insane. And I think the really important thing to look at here was all of our project teams are now actually producing something that's going into our automation pipeline. If it's Gherkin, it's business. They're writing test scripts in Gherkin. Your infrastructure is writing code that goes into Chef that builds our images. Our application developers and our test developers are writing test code. And now we have this ability to produce these amazing dashboards to go directly back to our development and project management teams to actually tell them the health versus somebody managing it in a spreadsheet in a PowerPoint deck that says, we're yellow. I don't know why we're yellow, but we're yellow. So our test automation changes were extremely successful. So what we called our test automation before would take 1,200 minutes to run, and it typically found 0 defects. When we were in the middle of doing the majority of the development, we actually were using Selenium Grid, and we were running it out on OpenShift and distributing that load, and it was running over 1,200 different tests in 12 minutes, and we were identifying defects 10 times a day on a daily basis. So from a test automation perspective, it was a huge success. And this is the part where I like to beat my chest a little bit. So I mentioned that we acquired First Niagara last year. So during the busiest time of the day and the most logins per second during this acquisition, we had to make changes because guess what? We had some user experience issues. For the First Niagara customers that needed to enroll, it was a little complicated for them and we needed to be able to react fast. We were able to put 10 production releases into production, 10 changes into production with 0 defects during the highest amount of volume that we've ever served, and it affected no one, and that was the power of OpenShift. Thank you. So, great success story for us. The last thing I'll mention is that we embrace open source. We love to contribute back to open source projects. This has been a great conference. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, sir.
I get to go low now. Thank you, John. I'm looking out here at you, and many of you are sitting in front of ThinkPads. They're a corporate standard at Red Hat, too. But Lenovo does more than just laptops. In the past 2 years, Lenovo has expanded its commitment to open source communities and open standards. For example, the integration of the Red Hat NFV platform with Lenovo's open platform framework. First, we'll take a look at this video, and then we'll have Kurt Skaugen come out and tell us more.
Legacy thinking is dead, stuck in the past, selling the same old stuff over and over. So then why does it seem like the data center, that thing powering all our little devices and more or less every interaction today is still stuck in legacy thinking? Because it's rigid, inflexible, slow. But that's not us. We don't do legacy. We do different. Because different is fearless. Different reduces cloud deployment from days to hours. Different creates agile technology that others follow. Different is fluid. It uses water cooling technology to save energy. It co-innovates with some of the best minds in the industry today. Different is better, smarter. Maybe that's why Different already holds so many world record benchmarks in everything, from virtualization to database and application performance, or why it's #1 in reliability and customer satisfaction. Legacy sells you what they want. Different builds the data center you need without locking you in. Introducing the Data Center Group at Lenovo. Different is better.
Please welcome Lenovo Executive Vice President and President of Lenovo Data Center Group, Kirk Skaugen.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about Lenovo and our increasing commitment to open source and why we think different is better at Lenovo. I thought I'd start with just a snapshot, since the company has evolved in such a significant way over the last couple of years, just a snapshot of where we are at today. So obviously, most people know us as the world's largest PC company, and that's true. This is the 25th year of the ThinkPad, and I don't think anyone 25 years ago would have thought that this company could have grown to a company now with over 160 countries, 55,000 employees, and 45 billion in revenue. But the ThinkPad is kind of the heritage that we grow up in. We've now acquired the Motorola phone business, and in the fourth quarter crossed over to be the 4th largest phone company outside of China, #2 in countries like India, the 2nd largest phone market in the world. That was the acquisition from Google. And then we've organized into a third business, which I manage, which is the Data Center Group, celebrating kind of the history about over 2 years ago acquiring the IBM x86 business. But now a #200 brand, Fortune 500 company, just surpassing Nike, Oracle, companies like that, Coca-Cola, to be #200 and a top 100 global brand. The data center piece of that, I think we're now celebrating a few decades of innovation. And I say that because I just celebrated 24 years at Intel. I joined Intel right out of college in 1992, and 6 months ago I was looking for where I would go for the next phase of my career. And I thought Lenovo and this heritage was really exciting about where we would go for the next 25 years, hopefully, of my career. But the Data Center Group, with the acquisition of the X Series business, the legacy systems business we had with Lenovo in China, and now Blade Network Technologies and a few other networking companies, we think positions us very well without kind of this legacy heritage that I'll talk about that some of our competitors have. It really positions us nicely to partner with companies like Red Hat on open source and software defined, and not be encumbered by having to worry about 65% gross margins on our legacy SANs or our legacy routers and things. So what's exciting to me about joining this company, and I joined Lenovo about 6 months ago to manage this group, is when I joined Intel 24 years ago, we were generating 100 gigabytes of data per day. Now I look at my career 24, 25 years later at 2.5 billion gigabytes per day. And when I stood up here, as an Intel employee, I'd say that our vision was if it consumes electricity, it's going to compute. And if it computes, it's going to connect to the internet. And so what's exciting to me about where you actually stand in cloud computing and in the emergence of software-defined and containers and open source is if you look at what's going to happen over the next 9 years, we're going to have 440 quintillion bytes of data. So sitting up here saying we're celebrating the 25th year of the ThinkPad on PC, I look out 10 years, 20 years, and say Lenovo didn't invent the PC, we just became #1. But today we're selling 4 smart devices every second, 100 servers every hour, and we're the 3rd largest server company in the world. Our goal is to expand that to out of servers into networking, into storage, through open source, and through this dramatic shift that you've heard everyone talk about over the last several days. So I think it's exciting if you look at a company and a customer of Lenovo's like Vestas. They're the largest wind turbine company in the world. And what I've always said is the internet of today was people to people. It's moving to people to machine, but it's going to move to machine. So here's a company with 50 million sensors out there doing meteorological data working with Lenovo on the server side and our application optimization, and we just had a very simple goal out there. We want to be the most trusted data center provider in the world. Come in without this legacy, talk about solutions, partner the best in the industry, and I think it's a great case study with Vestas because this world is moving to machine, and at the end of the day, what I think Lenovo does is take great technology from partners like Intel or AMD or others, and just build great x86 hardware that can deliver record performance and partner better than hopefully any company in the world. I think my view when I joined Lenovo was it didn't become #1 in PCs by just being the cost leader. It really did try to innovate on ThinkPads through security and manageability, through 2-in-1s, through Ultrabooks. And it's that same innovation focus that we inherited from IBM, traditionally around x86 compute and open source. This lack of legacy, the CIO after CIO that I talked to doesn't want to be encumbered by $100 million or $1 billion legacy service agreements. They just want a company that can partner, be on open source, and aggressively move forward with the most cost-effective technology. At the end of the day, I get to take advantage of millions and millions and millions of desktops, tablets, smartphones coming off of our own manufacturing, and that's the same place I'm putting my server technology through. So it's an incredibly cost-optimized business in a tough hardware market, but we have no real intention of going up the stack like some of our competitors. We just want to partner. That's the key message I guess I'd leave you with. No legacy, innovate. Little things don't mean a lot. Little things mean everything to us to kind of squeak out the last bit of performance. So if you look at what does it mean to be in the x86 server business and what do we bring to open source, for basically since we acquired the IBM business in January 2015, 22 of the last 28 studies since 2009, we've been #1 in customer satisfaction for x86 servers, third-party data. We're the fastest growing supercomputer company on the planet with 99 of the top 500 supercomputers, most on open source. #1 in SAP performance. SAP's running their SAP HANA on Lenovo publicly. #1 in server reliability for 4 years running. So really what we want to stand up in front of this audience today say is, look, we want to partner. We think we can have the engineering prowess to work with you as solution providers, with you as developers, with you as then customers, and get the last bit of performance out of the machines. And the end result is you're going to see things like 32 world record benchmarks, fastest performance in the world on almost all databases, those kind of things, and a supply chain that of companies over 12 billion is in the top 25 in the world, of all companies in all segments. So we can help with people on supply chain by being a person that participates, but the most important thing is different is better in helping tweak the last bit of performance out of open source. So if you look at the hardware market, what we see is it's an $80 billion going to $93 billion market, but the way we've reorganized the group since I've come on board is against 4 segments. Hyperscale computing, or the top hyperscalers in the world. So we're participating at Baidu and Alibaba, Tencent, some of the largest West Coast hyperscalers. And here, we just use our manufacturing capacity. If we can make some little money on desktop towers, we can build very, very cost-effective infrastructure for the hyperscalers. On software-defined, this is really about, again, lack of legacy and moving and leapfrogging over as a person without legacy to be able to move into software-defined in a major way. In HPC and artificial intelligence, again, we're going to take our position as the fastest growing supercomputer company in the world, #1 in China, and leverage that over into artificial intelligence. And then in data center infrastructure, we're building more solutions capability every day, leveraging the best of what we got from IBM, but also, especially in open source over the last 2 years, significantly increasing our contributions. And that's what I'll talk about over the next few minutes. So our commitment now to open source, if you just understand that what we're trying to do is build reference designs and base platform hardware for you, is we now participate in over 30 different open source standards organizations in the world, up over the last 2 years. We've got engineers focused on all of those. At the OpenStack Summit next week, We're contributing to the next generation OpenStack Pike platform. We're doing 4 white papers with our engineering teams there. We're today announcing the Opal platform, which we said a year ago at this conference that we would do, which was the open platform at Lenovo. It's a cost-optimized, hardened OpenStack reference design to build the best NFV solutions on top of for the next 5G infrastructure. So a huge contributor now to OpenStack, and you can see the reference design in our booth downstairs. Delivering open compute platform nodes, working as a tier 1 provider to open compute platform alongside people like Facebook and Intel and others. And then sponsoring the OpenStack Summit Upstream Institute. So a significant increase in our open source commitment, I would say almost exponential over the last 2 years, and I'm excited today to announce the fact that we're showing real hardware in our booth of something that we thought was just a vision a year ago here. If you look at the co-engineering we're doing with Red Hat now, and again, my team is obviously a global team given we participate in 160 countries around the world, but our headquarters is co-located in Raleigh. Most of our team is in Raleigh, North Carolina. But we are participating in over 12 OpenStack projects with Red Hat. We're a top contributor to the Cinder Storage project. We have collaboration initiatives on converged infrastructure, on telco NFV, on hybrid cloud management. So I'd encourage you to get down. We have some of our technical experts in the booth, and they can give you kind of a next view here. But we're basically taking our xClarity management software, integrating it in to manage IQ and some of these other solutions to build a better together story with Red Hat that we honestly think can be second to none. Since this is a conference that's celebrating the individual, I think it's a unique opportunity for me to talk on stage and celebrate some Red Hatters from Red Hat that we think have been instrumental in the transformation we've had over the last 2 years and some of the massive transformation we've had. So Jason Frey, Julian Chile, and Greg Bloomquist are helping our network management team of engineers. Luis Arizmendi is a solution architect who has helped tremendously on the ETSI project. Dan Radez is a senior software engineer with Red Hat who's helped us on the OpenNFV Plugfest. And Dave Kane is a senior solution architect who basically lives at our campus in Morrisville, North Carolina. He's been a key individual with our research team in helping deliver our OpenStack and new converged solutions. So how about we give these guys a round of applause? Excellent. So I believe in being simple and quick. What motivates me beyond just the contributions that we're all making to open source, the partnerships we build is a community of working together for decades, whether it was my old company or my new company. To me, it's the impact we're making in the marketplace. And if you go down to the solution showcase, you'll see some people that, because of open data and open compute platforms, we're seeing some amazing research being done in the areas of cancer research and solving some of the world's biggest humanitarian problems. So I thought I'd close and just show you a video of what it means to embrace open source, but most importantly, as partners, what we're doing to help some of the world's biggest humanitarian challenges. So run the video, please. So thank you all for, that's a long heartbeat. Thank you all for your partnership with Lenovo. I think what I wanted to leave you with is we believe our partnership with Red Hat is stronger than ever. You know, what you saw there is the Barcelona supercomputer, which is in the Torrigione Chapel. It was the fastest supercomputer in Europe. We're upgrading it right now to the next generation Purley platform from Intel to be 12 times faster. We're taking out about 48 kilometers of cabling and replacing it right now in Barcelona, Spain. But you can also go with Red Hat to University of Adelaide and see some of the most amazing cancer research in the world. We're upgrading that computer to be 30 times faster. University of Notre Dame, we're building a supercomputer with Red Hat to basically track hurricane prediction faster so we can get people evacuated, fewer people are evacuated more accurately and save human lives. So my commitment today is we're here to build the best open source platforms in the world. We're trying to put our actions where our mouth is, both in terms of end customer proof points, but also in the solutions that we said we would bring to you last year. Come down to our booth and see those, and I really look forward to the next several years of both the partnership with Red Hat and all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kirk. Appreciate it. You know, if you had told me a decade ago, maybe even a few years ago, that I'd be on stage telling you how great our relationship with Microsoft is, you know, I would have been really, really surprised. But, you know, here I am, and I have to tell you that, you know, we started partnering with them about 18 months ago or so, and we've built a solid relationship on mutual trust, and we've been doing some really good work together. It really has grown, the relationship really has grown because of that openness on both sides. In this demo, you'll see what Red Hat and Microsoft can do when we work together. You're going to see OpenShift running on Azure. Who would have ever thought that that was the same? Plus, Microsoft services and containers in action. After the demo, you're going to hear from Julia White, who's working on and is making a big impact on commercial software and cloud services. She's going to illustrate how our partnership is built on the familiar ideals of reliability, security, and trust, and frankly, how enterprise software works. So let me introduce the demo here, and we'll get started with that. Okay, come on, here we go.
Please welcome Microsoft Senior Software Development Engineer, Technical Evangelism and Development, Jim Zimmerman, and Red Hat Lead Developer Evangelist for OpenShift Online, Steve Pausty.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're super excited to be showing this demo to you. The goal of today's demo is to show you how you both, as dev and ops, you are actually benefiting from our partnership together.
Yeah, and if you remember last year, we showed SQL Server running in a container inside OpenShift, and everybody's like, no way, how that really works? So, but today we're going to show you something even better. So
let's go to the demo.
So on Tuesday in the keynote, Red Hat showed how easy it is to lift and shift a legacy Java app into a container in OpenShift. So everything we're going to show you today is running in OpenShift on Azure with fully integrated support. And of course, this could run anywhere OpenShift runs, on-prem or in the cloud, but today we're doing it on Azure. So.
Yep, so I got this deployed using an ARM template and an Ansible installer script. So just the same way you would install this everywhere. And there's our master and our node, and it's all running in Azure. But we've kind of seen that before. Let's move on to something a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, so if you remember, the DayTrader app is an enterprise Java app talking to MySQL, right? So let's start with modernizing the persistence layer. Maybe we could swap out MySQL with SQL Server.
Sounds like a great idea. Let's go back to the DayTrader app. Hello, this is the 90s calling. We'd like our web app back. All right, so we're going to log into DayTrader. Beautiful. As a user. And then we're hitting against the SQL Server database to show any of this stuff to you. Let's go ahead and look at this user's portfolio. They are obviously a brilliant individual with their investment in Red Hat shares.
So how do I know this is really connected to SQL, though?
Oh, so much for the nice partnership. Already we're doubting Thomas, or doubting Jim, as the case may be. So to prove it to my friend Jim here, I'm actually going to use OpenShift port forwarding So I'm going to port forward from this local machine into that running MySQL, that SQL Server container running on OpenShift. And so now my machine thinks it's actually talking, it actually is talking to that SQL Server instance. I'm going to open SQL Server Management Studio. There's our database on the left-hand side. I'm going to do a new query. And I'm going to say select star from holding, love that autocomplete. And I execute that query. And there you can see it executed directly against that SQL Server database back here running in OpenShift. Right? So that's that container running in OpenShift.
Awesome. So the reason this worked is with our newly open source JDBC driver, which allowed it to talk to the app, we also published it to Maven.
You published that JDBC driver to Maven?
Yep.
Java devs, can I get a hand on Maven? Yeah, Maven! Woo!
Believe it or not, that was one of our PMs that built that.
One of your PMs actually put that in there?
Yep.
Oh, give him a hug and a kiss from me.
So that's a good start, right? So we showed something for the SQL DBAs, but I'd like to know how we get the .NET devs to come on board.
Well, how do you attract any dev? It's with shininess and microservices. So what we're going to do now is spin up a microservice inside of OpenShift. All I have to do, this is a normal .NET application. You can see that right here. I'm going to clone this out of the Git repo, go over to OpenShift, add to project, pick my handy .NET builder here, pick the version I need, select it. Give it a name, winning, because that's all I ever do, and then go ahead and put in the Git URL. And from there, we've actually started the process of building that container. And just so that my doubting friend Jim here, I don't want to be doubted this time. I know where he's coming from. So I'm going to actually show the .NET build happening in real time behind us. So that's the .NET build happening there. That, for those not .NET developers, that's NuGet. So that's Microsoft's way of inflicting Maven pain on .NET developers. And then what you saw with that Visual Studio Code is that was standard Visual Studio Code. So when I was writing this app, I wrote some of it in Visual Studio on my Windows box. I wrote some of this in VS Code on my Linux box. And sometimes when I was modifying some of the pages, I even used Nano. I avoided those other two IDE editors because I like to avoid religious wars. And then what we're doing is the .NET build is finishing up here. What's going to happen is this image, this container image, is now going to get pushed into the Docker registry integrated inside of OpenShift. OpenShift will see that that image is finally there, and then proceed to push that out and deploy it. So I, as a .NET developer, I never even needed to know that containers were involved in the process. I mean, I know I got the benefit, but I didn't have to do any builds or anything like that. I just gave my source code, and away it went. So it looks like it's finished. This is the part where I get to show you how an awesome developer I am. We'll hit that REST endpoint. Really awesome developer. So awesome that I got an application not available message. There we go, a REST endpoint.
Awesome. Wasn't quite there yet.
Okay, thank you for those people who understand the REST endpoint.
Wow, REST endpoint, Steve, come on.
Yeah, I'm
That's
sorry.
not really that exciting.
Okay.
But what is great here is that Java and .NET can coexist in the same pane of glass that OpenShift provides, which our joint customers use both code bases. We all know that, right? So why don't we show some business value, like maybe add a Skype bot.
Skype bot? How did you know that I would have a Skype bot ready for you to go? So we've got a Skype bot ready here to go. Remember that stock portfolio of that other user? We're using that .NET service now and that REST endpoint to allow there to be a Skype bot talking into it. And what we're going to do is we're going to set it up and monitor that user's portfolio using the Skype bot. So while I set it up, I'll let Jim explain some more of what we're doing.
So wait, you're going to manipulate the star?
Yeah, not yet, not yet.
So our team extended the app by creating a Skype bot using the Microsoft Bot Framework and Azure Functions, which is our serverless experience in Azure. And to visualize how this is working, so we have the Skype bot talking to this new microservice that we just deployed, which is talking to the SQL Server container running inside of OpenShift.
Right, so what I just did was I set the lower limit for that user when they want to get notified, and now I'm going to set the upper limit. So we have an upper and lower limit. And now, since that stock portfolio that's sitting there, the bot's now watching my portfolio, it's about 137,000. Since that portfolio belongs to my parents, they're going to take advantage of their great intuitive knowledge about what we were going to be showing in our demo here today. And I'm going to show you the front end that we can use to manipulate, may you say, update stock prices as appropriate. So given the press release that's going to come out, obviously, after Jim and I do this kind of work, we're going to have a stock price that's going to go to millions of dollars per share. So as soon as I update that stock price, that portfolio might have increased in value. And if we go back to Skype, you can see that the bot has told my parents, time to start your own rocket company. Your portfolio is now worth $137 million.
Wow, can I borrow some money? Well, that demo was great, but not everything's just buzzwords, right?
Right, exactly, it's true.
So what would we do with like legacy .NET apps, like we were doing with legacy Java apps? Is there anything that we can do for them to benefit?
Oh, I just happen to have something right here for you, Jim. What a great friend you are. So what we're going to show right now, back in this same project that was running the Java legacy application, that was running the brand new .NET microservice, we're going to actually spin up IIS. Right? And so IIS does not run on Linux yet. So when I'm spinning up these containers, I'm going to be using OpenShift to spin up containers running on a Windows server. So Windows containers running on a Windows server. So I pick IIS server.
So how did you get this to happen, though? Is this like this OpenShift origin?
Yeah, I should preface that, sorry, I get so excited, that this is actually the benefits of both Microsoft and Red Hat being part of the Kubernetes community. Right? What I'm showing you now, this is the first time you're seeing this in public. This is actually upstream work that has been coming out of the Kubernetes to show how we can actually orchestrate and schedule Windows containers running on a Windows server. So there's I'm getting ready to start IIS. I say create, and if I go back here, you can see we're actually scaling up or spinning up a new container that's actually running on a Windows server.
Can you scale it up too?
Oh, suddenly you're like, you believe me on everything I do? Hold on a second. Let's actually prove to you, because I don't want to hear about this later, that there was something else going on. I'm going to go now into the terminal on that container. Oh, everybody's favorite command prompt, DOS. Woo! So there, I just did a dir. I can do a system info. If I type it correctly, and there you can see that this machine actually is on a Windows. It's got the path the wrong way and everything. So let's go back now and actually scale this up like Jim asked for. So again, what's happening here is OpenShift is talking to a Windows server and telling it to scale up another Windows container.
Wow. So what we just saw here was SQL Server container.
Yep.
An enterprise Java app, a .NET microservice, a Skype bot,
yeah,
and an IIS app running in Windows container.
You betcha.
All in OpenShift.
That's right. OpenShift was enabling all of this. So what we also showed you today was the freedom and choice to develop and deploy where and when you want to, right? So this was about making it so it's no longer a question of Microsoft or Red Hat. It's now Microsoft and Red Hat. Your tools, your way, you're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Please welcome Microsoft Corporate Vice President for Azure and Security Marketing, Julia White.
All right. Good afternoon. So hopefully you saw the potential and the possibilities of this fantastic partnership. So to end the conference, I get a chance to kind of bring it back up a little bit and talk about, great, all this fantastic technology. You've had several days to steep in it. But what is it all about? And what are we trying to do together? And I'm thrilled to kind of close the afternoon on that note. So, I've been in technology a long time. I've been at Microsoft for 16 years. And it's like every year, it's like, oh, things are changing faster than ever, and this is it. But I like to just step back for a second and put it in some kind of historical context around the revolution that we're currently in, which we like to talk about as the fourth industrial revolution. If you think about it, first, the steam engine, right, revolutionized transport. And then it was electricity that revolutionized our ability to work and play 24 hours versus around sunset and sunrise. And then, of course, the IT revolution, which, frankly, Microsoft was founded on, and putting a PC on every desk and every home was about that. And now, the generation we're in, around the digital transformation, and digital being what every organization moving forward is going to be living and dying on and competing on and differentiating with. And that's the space we're in right now. And to me, it's such an incredible opportunity for all of us in technology right now to be part of this revolution. And I'd like to drill in a little bit on this electricity, because I think it's actually a good analogy to the world I live in around cloud. And you think about back then, when the electricity first came, imagine being the VP of electricity when it was first invented and what your job looked like and what you were doing, and going from being a maker of water wheels that have your own power generator to then the transformation into being a global utility. And then how many new jobs and new capabilities were created out of this simple and the original invention. And of course, different jobs changed. Candles went from being essential to being fanciful. But then the possibilities that revolutionize all things that we do today in technology stemming from that. And I think that's such a good analogy to think about the cloud and this digital revolution we're in, and how much is going to change because of that, and the inspiration it has behind that. Now I spend most of my time talking with CIOs and senior leaders around this digital transformation. And I find it tends to kind of happen in 4 key ways, as you see here. And each one of them has so much potential. I think about first, like engaging with customers. One of my favorite customers with Real Madrid, the football club, and how they could connect with 400 million fans around the globe and make it feel like they were in the stadium with them, even though they were distributed, and creating that kind of experience as a digital one. Or Rolls-Royce jet engines, working with them to fundamentally transform from being a seller of a manufactured item, a jet engine, to now what they do is sell running engine hours. They're a service provider, fundamental digital transformation of their core product line. Amazing. And all these things underneath them really are about what's possible because what's happening with technology today, of course, starting with the cloud, and fundamentally why I do Azure, why I focus on Azure every day and every night is about enabling these kind of possibilities in that digital world. But of course, as we know, people are looking to the combination of cloud and open source to offer that agility, to deliver results more quickly. And that reality, that truth is what brought Microsoft and Red Hat together to do what I think is a fantastic partnership. Now, in part of this partnership, it's about enabling a holistic solution. It's not just about great technology, of course it is, but it's about making you successful. That's what technology is. And so as we came together, it wasn't just about kind of bringing our tech together, which we're doing, but it's also about the support, creating an ecosystem around our technologies so that we can make sure we provided you a very unique experience in using Azure and using Red Hat technologies together, that you could have that confidence. And regardless of whether it resides in the cloud or on premises or in hybrid cloud across those 2 places. And certainly speaking to hybrid cloud, I think that's also a place where we're deeply invested together and really understand the partnership needed to make hybrid successful. Things like making sure Red Hat works great on Azure, making sure Windows Server works great on Red Hat Enterprise Linux Platform, and virtualization on both directions in that world. And then, of course, doing the technology, those co-engineering investments we have, supporting things like .NET integration with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and including Atomic Host and OpenShift as well. So going down into the technology and making sure we have a better together story. But let me give you a little bit more color of why does this partnership make sense, and what are we doing to change the game in this area? So first, I'll start from a global perspective. Red Hat has customers all over the world, mission-critical applications being run there. And with Azure, we've taken what is actually a very difficult engineering approach by creating a distributed cloud architecture and infrastructure, and actually putting data centers in more locations for the sole purpose of, because we know enterprise customers want to locate their applications near their employees and near their customers, and also face lots of data residency requirements that are important, which is why we've invested this way in a very differentiated approach to what our cloud does, and enables those Red Hat customers around the globe to take advantage of that and meet the requirements of their applications and of the regulatory as well. Now, each one of those little dots on that map, it looks very small. It's not. It's actually, each region is made up of multiple data centers that are massive, but it's hard to describe, it's hard to kind of visualize. So instead, I'm going to roll a short video to show you just what one around the globe looks like. So why don't we go ahead and roll that video. Now, beyond just the global availability, it's certainly around kind of meeting those enterprise needs. Again, Red Hat's used for mission-critical applications all over the world. And so it's essential that they have a great partnership from a cloud perspective with someone who meets those same kind of needs. And now, it was actually over 8 years ago, Microsoft, we established what we call our trust principles, those around compliance, privacy, transparency. And then more recently, we've added accessibility and responsibility from an environmental perspective as well as an economic. And we live those principles every day in the way we build and operate our cloud service. And maybe one of my best examples is around privacy. Microsoft, we actually sued our biggest customer, the US government, because they were asking for data out of our Dublin data center, and we felt that was out of jurisdiction and did not align with our principles around privacy. We spent 2 years in litigation and fighting that, and we won. And we've now established case law and precedent around data privacy for cloud. That's just one example of how we live this every day, and it's so critical to the advent of technology and what we can all do together in that area. And of course, security, it could not be more important. And you saw a little bit in that video, of course, physical security, logical security, absolutely essential. But now what the cloud can do is fundamentally transforming. We're now able to establish what we call the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph that brings together security signal from across our entire global cloud, email, endpoints, IP, identity, looking at DDoS attacks, and then combining that with our digital crimes unit that works with law enforcement across the globe. And bringing that intelligence together, we actually have the benefit of protecting all of our cloud customers in a more proactive way than we've ever had before. I talked to customers about the cloud, and they'd say, I can't use the cloud because of security. That's switched. Now most of my customers talk to me about how I have to get to the cloud because the security is better. It's incredibly important. And then last, of course, but not least, around supporting and making sure we have global customer support. And that's one of the things that I know many of our joint Red Hat and Microsoft customers tell me about is so important, having that single place to go and having global support around this mission-critical infrastructure. Now, of course, switching from the enterprise needs, hybrid is so core, and that's something, again, Red Hat and Microsoft are so incredibly aligned on. I know most CIOs tell me about their cloud-first strategy, which is great, but cloud-first does not mean cloud only. And hybrid cloud cannot be looked at as a short-term solution. It's not about something that's expensive and having just connectivity between your cloud and your on-premises experience. That's like running 2 different systems. It's expensive, it's complex, it's hard to maintain. You have to think about this as a durable approach that is secured and managed in a holistic way. And that's, again, where Red Hat and Microsoft have come together, whether it be an identity layer and having Active Directory and Azure Active Directory with OpenShift natively supporting that, or all the management and security from Azure applies to all of the RHEL instances, as well as what can extend down into on-premises as well in a consistent way. One security policy across the entire environment. Or certainly from a data perspective, hopefully you know we're working hard on SQL on Linux and supporting that with Red Hat as well. And then from a platform perspective and that consistent developer experience, if you don't know about Azure Stack is an extension of Azure. We're literally taking the technology of Azure and allowing it into a footprint, into an integrated system that can run in your data center. Same APIs, same marketplace, same core experience, IaaS and PaaS services, such that you can run a global application in Azure and extend it down in a completely consistent way locally. We have customers like cruise lines putting this on a boat where connectivity is limited, or a compliance organization who runs a global application in Azure, but in some countries needs to run it locally in that country. Just a few examples of how this is coming to life. And thrilled about the potential around Azure Stack that's coming in a general availability later this year. But it's that consistency across and how Red Hat and Microsoft can do that. It makes it a durable, efficient, secure hybrid cloud mode. Now, we've done a lot of things across Red Hat and Microsoft to enable our customers. So I wanted to actually have one of our joint customers come out and tell us a little bit about what they're doing and how it's helped them. So I'd like to introduce Terrence Snyder from Catalina to talk us a little bit about what they're doing. So welcome, Terrence. Thanks. Good. All right, so first start a little bit about what Catalina does so everyone knows.
Yeah, to put it simply, I think let's start with an experience that most of you in this room have had with Catalina. If you've shopped at any one of our retailers, we have basically 3 presences across the world, 45,000 stores, so likely you have. And you've shopped, and while you checked out with your receipt, you received a high-value coupon on products that you buy, so that way you could come back later and use that coupon to reward that loyalty with another offer.
Fantastic. Now, you had a lot of technology choices as you were building out this global platform. So why did you choose a combination of Azure and Red Hat?
I think to answer that question, we have to kind of go back a little bit to sort of the digital transformation that Catalina has gone through. So for the past 15, 20 years, Catalina has been able to execute that coupon that we just talked about at the individual store level. So when we talk about that, that's 45,000 stores, each individually looking at the pause messages that we see. Every single beep of that little pause message basically says, hey, somebody bought a particular brand or a category. That was locked in effectively through batch-based processes into each one of those stores. And so as our retailers are facing these external pressures, and obviously the way that we shop is changing, we needed to untap that data from the store and actually bring it into multiple channels to create a more real-time, cohesive experience with the consumer.
Yeah. And then sort of thinking about which platform to pick on that kind of a global space.
Yeah, exactly. Go back to your original question. I think with that as sort of the baseline, if we talked about scaling that, we're talking about 45,000 stores on 3 different continents being able to see every single one of those pause messages that happen and scan. So when you take a look at that at aggregate level, that's about 800 million transactions that are happening on a day-by-day basis. And sort of to help level set that to you guys in the room, if you looked at each one of those pause messages, in each one of them have basically metadata about it. What was the UPC? What was the brand? What was the category? What was the price? And that packet of information basically represents the same size of message that you'd see in Twitter. So when you go 800 million transactions a day, Twitter size basically payloads. We needed a platform that could scale to basically Twitter size. And so in looking at that, we basically had 2 core objectives. One, we needed to get out to market fast. So with that, we looked externally, we looked at the marketplace. We live in this great world right now where we can look at basically open source technologies like HBase, like Kafka, like Druid, like Solar, the list could keep on going and growing and growing, and use that to build a strong foundation for what we could build our business technologies on. Second, we obviously needed scale. We already talked about the 800 million transactions. We needed a platform that could drive that real-time data, that could act on it, and that could have the resiliency, the trust that you were just talking about, because it is pause data, to basically drive the decisions to create those consumer experiences. And on top of that, we were so focused on performance because we need to make those decisions in real time. We need to go all the way down to the OS level. We needed to be able to look at an OS like Red Hat and use that to drive our core OS decision to basically come in and say, the security's there, we can pass compliance checks, and key there is the support was there. And one of the things I kind of want to draw back on is, the decision to go with cloud, we looked at a lot of different sort of vendors out there. I wanted to basically bring this key point in. We chose open source, and we chose Azure because it could run open source.
Got it. I know that sometimes that still has to resonate.
Yeah, I think I'd be digressive. Like we are a Java shop, we're not a .NET shop. So the moment we came in and we even broached, Azure, I think there were a lot of people who had like that knee-jerk reaction. But here we are today, as I speak to you right now, in stores around where we're currently standing. There are transactions flying across the wire, executing in Azure, and delivering media.
That's fantastic. And what I love about what you're doing, too, is you're fundamentally helping these retailers transform digitally, right? As you said, shoppers are changing, profiles are changing, and you're creating this digital experience that they can tap into to revolutionize what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Their reach, their ability, retailers are going into all these different channels. They're creating, various different engagement models with consumers. It used to be that you walk into a store, you buy a product. Then it changed to you go online, you might go into store. And now it's augmented to where you're going in and you might do home delivery, you might do in-store pickup, you might obviously go to the store. Those things, that ability to drive all that data into a central location and the ability to have a cohesive conversation with somebody is something that our retailers are looking at within their digital strategy as well. And obviously brands.
Fantastic. And I love that you've created a platform which you're going to be able to innovate and keep up with this digital transformation in retail. So where does it go from here?
Yeah, that's the main thing. You know, who knows what the retail landscape is going to look like in the next year, 3 years, 5 years out. But our key decisions to use the technology that we did, specifically the open source ones, allows us that flexibility and agility. And obviously with cloud, you know, we have that scale sitting out there. So as we look to the future, you know, we're basically sitting out here going, we're here with you now, we're going to be with you in the future.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your partnership, and thanks for being here. Appreciate it. All right. Now, stepping back just a little bit, again, I still sometimes get surprised when people are like, Microsoft and open source, really? What's going on? So I wanted us to spend a minute giving context on how we think about it across the organization in Microsoft around our contributions and the way we work end-to-end in our open source approach. So first, it starts with enablement, and that's really working with an existing open source ecosystem so that you can extend your existing investments and get more from what you have in place and come in and surround that experience for you and frankly get more value out of it. The next part is around integrating. And we're embracing popular open source technologies so that we can offer then a consistent offering to you. And one example, I think, is around our container orchestrators. Now, rather than building our own, Azure is the only public cloud provider that is just embracing open source technologies from Kubernetes to Docker Swarm to DCOS, enabling that in our Azure Container Service. From a release perspective, kind of two parts. One, supporting our ecosystem through our own portfolio. And that's like taking a journey of existing technologies and open sourcing them like .NET or VS Code or PowerShell, and then increasingly open sourcing from the beginning. Things like TypeScript and Azure Container Service Engine that originate as an open source experience. And then last but not least is certainly around contributing. Now, it's about providing contributions into open source as well. And then I actually was excited to see, it was a few months ago, this report that showed that Microsoft is actually the leading provider to GitHub projects. And it's certainly in Microsoft projects, but also third-party, too. In some of our Docker projects, actually, one of Microsoft's engineers is the third most active contributor to that project itself. So bringing the incredible engineering talent that we have at Microsoft and enabling and empowering that open source community is so core. Now, as we think about what's next, we've certainly been on a great journey, and it's coming up on 2 years now ago that we established our partnership with Red Hat. It's just one of the many steps along this journey. But you can also expect that to continue in a bunch of different ways. And thinking about Red Hat and Enterprise Linux on Azure Stack as a next step, as we think about pulling that forward, as well as SQL Server on Linux running in Red Hat with high availability and disaster recovery provided by Red Hat. So just a couple examples of the continued co-innovation and co-partnership as we move forward. Now, I mentioned a little bit about kind of our joint support offering. So I want to actually kind of bring it back up to the theme of the conference all up about the power of that individual. Now, on the slide behind you, you see pictures or avatars of over 3,000 people in the Microsoft community that are actively participating, just some of the overall community participating in open source. And it's truly, it's part of our DNA, both now as well as moving forward in a wonderful, wonderful way. And these 3,000 people encompass engineering. They also encompass documentation writers, designers, support engineers as well. And we had asked some of those support engineers, those co-located and working day in, day out on the front line, supporting our joint Red Hat Microsoft customers. We asked some of them to tell us, in their words, what that partnership meant for the customers they support and how it shows up for them. So speaking to that power of the individual, I wanted to conclude today by rolling the video with their voice and showing what I think is a very authentic view of how this partnership can help all of us, our companies, as well as our customers, continue to innovate and recognize this digital transformation. So thank you so much. Let's roll the video.
Customers love the fact that Microsoft has partnered with one of the biggest and most well-known Linux enterprise vendors in the world. With an open-mindedness and persistence, Microsoft and Red Hat have come from a tenuous relationship to one of partnership and mutual success.
Both Microsoft and Red Hat came to the table with an open mind, keeping the customer in the front and center while designing the whole integrated support experience.
There's so many different ways that we collaborate, whether it's making sure we're ready to support a new product, such as SQL Server on RHEL, or preparing to co-present our integrated support story at Red Hat Summit. One thing is always the same though. Together, both teams are always focused on delivering an exceptional integrated support experience for our customers.
For me, the most rewarding part of working with Red Hat is that we truly engage and feel like one support team with no barriers between us to enable our customers to be successful.
Thank you very much, Julia. That was great. You know, I have to tell you, Summit is by far my favorite week of the year. You know, and after 13 years spent doing this and 13 summits, collaborating with customers and partners on stage, in sessions, it always amazes me just how much we learn and how many new ideas gain traction right here in just the few days that we're together. Summit is about Red Hat, but it's also and mainly about you. This year we celebrate the impact of the individual, every single person, every bit of code, every open source project has the power to change the world. And I think we have seen that so much every year, culminating here at the Summit. That's how we got here, as a matter of fact, with your help. So keep dreaming and learning and working to make technology better, and we'll do the same. And let's catch up again next year in San Francisco, May 8th through the 10th, 2018. See you there. Thanks so much.
She said hi, I said no. How far should I go? Should I jump through hoops in the January snow? I said bad, she said good, but I knew that she would. Running circles around me.